Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Get ready for an action-packed edition of the show as we get to the very latest in the National Basketball Association. A couple of teams now officially in the NBA playoffs. More play-in games scheduled, though, for this week. We will, of course, discuss that and preview that as well. The National Hockey League season also coming to an end last night. Stanley Cup Playoffs are just around the corner. On the show today, we'll break it all down for you. We'll do some hockey and some baseball with our buddy George Kurtz, who will join us a little bit later in the show. So stay on the grid for that. He'll be on the program at 12:42 Eastern. NFL Draft coming up next week. We got a special next Thursday night. So make sure you catch Jacob Kamaker. He'll give you a preview of what we could potentially expect. That's at 12:30 Eastern. And in about 10 minutes from now, Rohit Panaya is going to join us here on the show. And we will go over the latest in everything happening in the National Basketball Association as well. But first, let's get to the results of last night and where do we go from here? We'll start off with the Philadelphia 76ers. No Embiid, no problem. Man, the Magic are just falling apart here at the end of the season. 109-97. That was the final score yesterday. So the 76ers cover as 1.5-point home favorites and also clinch the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. Will take on the Boston Celtics in round one. Tyrese Maxey with a nice game for Philly. 31 points. VJ Edgecombe, 19 points and 11 assists in the game. Here's Nick Nurse on moving on and Jamal Mosley on where the Magic go from here.
What does it mean to you to make the playoffs after the way last season went?
Yeah, it's good. I think, like I told the guys, I'm proud of them. There's many times this year I've told them I'm proud of them for kind of continuing to pick themselves up and keep playing, right? And this was another example tonight with some stakes and some pressure. But I think, again, we played extremely hard. I thought we made a lot of winning plays. And of course, to get in the playoffs, it's kind of go back to the opening press conference of the year. I said we got a really, really big hole to dig out of, and we want to get in the tournament somehow. Wasn't pretty. Wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty, but we're here now, and now we got to see what we can do with it.
You mentioned Friday your backs are up against the wall now. It's going to go home with this elimination game. You've been saying taking it one game at a time this whole time, but
this is literally it. This is it. One game at a time, and this is the one game that we've got to make sure we go home and take care of. And our fans are going to be there ready to go, supporting us and as we make sure we take care of home.
Biggest game of the year for the Magic coming up on Friday night. We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, how about the Golden State Warriors? They took care of business last night against the Los Angeles Clippers, who are going home. No more playoffs for the Clippers. Steph Curry dialed it back, 35 points last night, 4 assists. Porzingis also had 20 and 5. Believe it or not, Golden State was down 13 in the fourth quarter. They came all the way back to win, which certainly has Steve Kerr happy they're moving on, and Ty Lue reflects on the disappointing Clippers season.
I just told them it was, with all the wins we've ever had here, with a lot of them with a lot more at stake, this is right up there. Just because, of where we are and our age and our, the decline of our performance this year, the injuries, it was just a display of, just a beautiful display of competitive will, and this is why Steph came back. So everybody out there who thought Steph should have taken the rest of the year off, this is what he does. This is who he is. If he can compete, he's going to compete, and it was just incredible to watch.
What's your level of anger, disappointment, frustration, or is there a word that you can use to describe what happened?
Pissed off. Yeah, we had a game in our hands and some silly plays, not doing the right thing execution-wise. And, to be up 13 with 10 minutes, to go in a game, we got to finish that game. So I'm disappointed about that.
Clippers are going to have to answer a lot of questions this coming off season. All right, so if there's a question as to who is eligible for the NBA's MVP, that was put to rest yesterday, or this morning actually. Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham are both eligible for the NBA's most valuable player and also eligible for making the All-NBA teams, which could put some money back in their pocket. I guess you could still vote on the NBA's MVP, but I thought that was over with. I thought you couldn't vote on the MVP once the playoffs began, so I guess there's still a couple of days remaining on that. Neither of these guys, by the way, going to win the MVP, but just a nice thought here to put some extra money in their pockets for winning all NBA despite not playing the minimum 65 games. Okay, so the state of Kentucky going back and forth as to whether or not they're actually going to push through this new law, which would prohibit anybody who's 18 years old to be able to bet on sports. They want to move this thing to 21. The Kentucky Senate and House overrode the governor, and that will raise the sports betting veto up to 21 years old. So as of right now, it does look like within 24 hours for the bluegrass state, you're going to have to be 21 and also potentially set a 15% tax rate for both fixed odds horse racing and daily fantasy sports at all, which could change the landscape of horse racing in Kentucky, like the Kentucky Derby and everything else. So stay tuned. Kentucky making a lot of changes in terms of sports. All right, now the National Football League, as of right now, we still have months to go until we get to the NFL's preseason in August. But right now, it does appear that there's a really good chance we're going to see some replacement officials coming this summer and into the fall. The NFL has informed clubs that the league's officiating staff has begun onboarding replacement refs and will have training sessions, and they will attend off-season practices. You know, those OTAs, that could start as soon as June 1st. Wow, this could actually happen in the National Football League. Mixed messages, meanwhile, coming on the golf course. This is coming from Live Golf. Yesterday, there was a report that it could be the end of Live Golf. Live Golf saying yesterday this is not the case. They have some additional funding, and they're going to continue on. But usually when there's smoke, there's fire. We could end up seeing the end of Live Golf if this does come to fruition. But naturally, they say all is well, and the tournaments will roll on, at least for the time being. You know who else is rolling on? That's Shohei Ohtani. He did not hit yesterday, but he did pitch, and that was enough. The Dodgers beat the Mets 8-2. Ohtani, 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 10 strikeouts against the Mets, who have now lost 8 straight games. The Dodgers swept the Mets. My goodness, what is going on with the Mets these days? We know what's going on with the Dodgers. It's Ohtani pitching and hitting when he can. They gave him a day off yesterday. After the game, he said, hey, I could have used the day off, and he did pretty well on the mound.
Shohei, what was your reaction when Dave said that he wanted you to only pitch today?
ピッチャーだけって言われた時の反応、リアクションは。ちょっとびっくりはしましたけど、はい、チーム的としてもいい戦略というかじゃないかなとは思うので、もちろんデッドボール当たってピッチングの方に専念してほしいって言われてたので、そこにまず集中しようかなと思ってました。
After getting hit by a pitch, Doc thought that it was a good idea for me and for the team to just focus on the pitching side of the game. And so I was a little bit surprised, but it made sense hearing what he had to say.
Surprising is this just, we all see the talent in this room since spring training over the offseason. Just what is the level of surprise that this is happening?
Yeah, it's surprising, but you go through these things. Maybe this is a bit extreme, probably, but it doesn't help. Facing two of the best in the game the last 2 days. You could be swinging the bat well and run into those guys, and they're kind of like a buzzsaw. But yeah, I don't really got much to say other than can't explain it, and we'll keep on working to figure it out.
Tough days right now for Bo Bichette and the Mets. All right, let's get to the rest of the results. The Padres came down from 4 down in the ninth to beat the Mariners 7-6. So they end up picking up a much-needed victory there. Speaking of which, the Brewers took care of the Blue Jays 2-1. Mike Trout homered for the Angels, but the Yankees ended up winning by a final of 5-4 over the Tampa Bay Rays. And the Chicago Cubs win as road dogs. They scored 10 runs yesterday. Shota Imanaga, 11 strikeouts as they beat the Phillies by a final score of 11-2. Also, the Tigers won their 5th game in a row. They beat the Twins 2-1. The Rays dominated the White Sox. And how about this kid that you see right there, Sal Stewart, 2 3-run home runs. The Cincinnati Reds. We'll take a quick timeout here on NewsWire. When we come back next, Rohit Panaya is going to join us. We'll go over the latest in the National Basketball Association right after this update.
Not all these kids, but the majority of these kids in the top 10 have had things handed to them since they're in 3rd grade because they're special athletically. And the fact that they get humbled a little bit, I'm here for the humbling. I've been humbled. I like when other people get humbled.
But you were humbled later.
Yeah.
You weren't humbled at 22 in front of the world.
No.
You were a grown-ass man.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
The process is closed. Let's call it out for this, right? And is it their fault? You could, they've been just besieged at Embiid, but it just continues, Kevin, right? As soon as he's like, don't worry about my health, and then here we are. Right. I would have traded him a couple of years ago. I would have gotten ahead of the curve, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
At the end of the day, LeBron's going to have to put that team on his back. Can he do it? I don't know if he could do it for a 7-game series. Can he give you two, oh my goodness, LeBron at 31? Yeah, I think he can give you a couple of those games. But it's about the other guys that have to step up.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
There is one cardinal rule in sports media. You do not mess with the game or the ability for people to watch the game. These streaming giants better figure out how to deliver a live sporting event without any hitches, because broadcast television understood this for decades, and they know, Donnie, hey, there is nothing more important.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Rohit Panaya is with us to discuss the latest in the NBA. We've got a few tournament games still left, and then the real thing almost underway this weekend. Rohit, thank you for coming on NewsWire here to break it all down with us. Really appreciate it. All right, so let's start off with where we're at and where things stand as we wind down the tournament. We've got Philadelphia winning, so they are the number 7 seed in the East. Golden State wins, so they'll play Phoenix to, I guess, have the right to lose to OKC, if I'm right by that. That's the 8th seed. And then Orlando lost, of course, so they'll play Charlotte for the 8th seed there. Okay, so if that all makes sense, what is your big takeaways of what we've seen thus far?
The big one for me is I just don't trust this Magic team anymore. On paper, I really thought things would come together for them down the stretch when they finally got healthy. But Mosley's definitely lost the locker room there. Losing to Boston at the end of the regular season when the Celtics were playing pretty much their C team, that was embarrassing. Lost things down the stretch against the 76ers last night. So it's, one of those things where I just don't love the momentum that they have. And the Hornets are red hot. So, that's one thing that's definitely a takeaway for me there. And one thing, too, I'll say is that the Pistons have played extremely well all season, especially at home. They are the number 1 seed, but they're also vulnerable. I mean, this is a very young team that is not playoff tested. So for any number 1 seed to kind of be in that position, I would say that there is a little bit of vulnerability there. I don't know if the Magic can take advantage of it, but if the Hornets get through, I think the Hornets can definitely give them a run for their money.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything yet on Ball playing tomorrow night. I'm sure that will come down today. But last night, the 76ers, as you mentioned, dismantled the Magic 109-97. And Rohit, it does make sense at this point for what you're saying here, because the Magic have not shown any fight. So Philly moves on. Let's do the Magic here real quick with Bane and Paolo Banchero. I mean, they still have a lot of talent, and it looked like the first half of the season things were going their way. So are you alluding to maybe the possibility that the Magic maybe have to make a change at coach?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's lost the locker room at this point, and I think there's something to be said for a team that was very different last year. Right, they were slow paced. They played really well defensively, and now they try to kind of change their identity, and things haven't worked out at all. I mean, their injuries have played a role, but that's been the case for a lot of teams, and I don't think they've gotten the most out of the players they do have there. Guys like Banchero, guys like Suggs, who've been a bit inconsistent at times. I think they need an extra gear to get there, and I don't think that Mosley has it in him to take them there.
And the other part of last night, seems like we're getting a lot of comebacks in these games. The Warriors came down from 13 to take care of the Clippers and knock them out of the playoffs. They were 5.5-point road dogs. Steph Curry, at least with an opportunity to move on, we think, we'll have to get another game from him probably like this in order for to have that happen. And then are we going to go through the same thing with the Clippers like the Magic here? I mean, are we in that same situation where Ty Lue's got to be wondering if he'll be back too next year?
Yeah, I think he has a little bit more, I think, of leeway because of, his track record and how he relates to players. And the fact, too, is that the Clippers, their entire roster, which had kind of just a really weird makeup this year. I mean, obviously, it's disappointing to not make the playoffs at all, but I don't think anybody really saw them as a contender. It is very disappointing to waste a season from Kawhi Leonard, probably the best year he's had in, a while. But at the same time, I don't think that Lou necessarily is out of his job, but they need to make some changes there. Interesting, of course, the Warriors came back to win that one. They shot like 46% from deep. They're never out of the game because they can catch up with their three-point shooting. And that's kind of the exact opposite of the Magic, right? Magic, one of the worst three-point shooting teams out there. I think Desmond Bane was 4 from 6 for deep, but I think the rest of the team was something like 2 for 23 or something like that. So, I mean, they cannot shoot threes for the life of them. So when they fall behind, that really leads to a lot of issues for them. But the Warriors are kind of always in it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the NBA last night, I guess, did issue a fine for LaMelo Ball, but no suspension for this game coming up against the Magic. So, Rohit, let's take a look at the odds. The Hornets are 3.5-point favorites with a total of 218.5. And I know, certainly it's almost impossible to look at this game and back the Magic in any way. But with the talent that they have, I mean, it would not surprise anyone to see this game. I think it would surprise anybody to see the Magic do anything in the playoffs this season. But do you think that it is curtains for them tonight if you include the odds here as well?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, I understand that it's tempting to take the points with the home side between two teams that, at least on paper, don't look very far apart. But like I said, I have not been impressed with how the Magic have played down the stretch. Don't love their body language. Don't love how they play from behind. And then you look at this Hornets team, and they have been red hot. I mean, since the All-Star break, this team is second in the league in offensive rating, second in the league in net rating. And when they win, they tend to win big. In their last 25 games, they have 18 wins, 16 of those wins coming by double digits. Last 3 meetings against the Magic, including 2 in Orlando, they won those by at least 15 points. I know Suggs, I don't think, played in 2 of them, and I think Wagner didn't play in 2 of them either. But at the same time, I do think that the Hornets, have a significantly better team. If you're going to look at the Magic, I would say just take them on the money line. I think if they keep this close, they have a pretty good chance of winning, but I honestly don't think it'll be that close. So, another way to play it, I'm laying the points with the Hornets, but another way to play it is alternate spreads because the Hornets have been just destroying teams over the last couple of months.
Makes sense here. So the tougher game to call will be Warriors Suns for sure because Phoenix has been pretty consistent all season long. They took a tough loss the other day. They're going to be slight favorites against Golden State. I mean, do they have a win in them here? I mean, I'm not asking them to win a lot of playoff games, but this would be a disappointing season overall if they couldn't just win one of these 2 tournament games, Rohit.
Yeah, I think so, but I think it would be a little bit disappointing for both of these teams to, miss the playoffs when they have guys like Booker and Curry on the team, veteran teams there at the same time. But I do think the Suns managed to pull this one off. Big thing, of course, is that the Suns do defend the arc extremely well. It's kind of a good defensive team against a team that has just been kind of awful defensively. Since the All-Star break, Warriors are 22nd in the league in defensive rating. When you take into account all the brutal teams this season that have been tanking since midseason, that means the Warriors pretty much have the worst defense out of any competitive team in the league. So that's not great in this matchup. And, the Suns do play pretty good defense of their own, and they've got Booker and a few guys that can score. So I do think the Suns managed to take this one, but would be disappointing, I think, for either of these teams to miss out on the postseason.
All right, Rohit, stick around. We're going to get his best plays tonight in the National Basketball Association for the final 2 play-in games, and then we'll start previewing some of the upcoming series in the NBA, including the matchup between Minnesota and Denver, and also Atlanta and New York. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We'll take a quick timeout. More NBA discussion when we return next.
Not all these kids, but the majority of these kids in the top 10 have had things handed to them since they're in 3rd grade because they're special athletically. And the fact that they get humbled a little bit I'm here for the humbling. I've been humbled. I like when other people get humbled.
But you were humbled later.
Yeah.
You weren't humbled at 22 in front of the world.
No.
You were a grown-ass man.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
The process is closed. Let's call it out for this, right? And is it their fault? You could argue, they've been just besieged at Embiid, but it just continues, Kevin, right? As soon as he's like, don't worry about my health, and then here we are, right? I would have traded him a couple of years ago. I would have gotten ahead of the curve, Kevin.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
At the end of the day, LeBron's going to have to put that team on his back. Can he do it? I don't know if he could do it for a 7-game series. Can he give you oh my goodness, LeBron at 31? Yeah, I think he can give you a couple of those games. But it's about the other guys that have to step up.
Pro basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
There is one cardinal rule in sports media. You do not mess with the game or the ability for people to watch the game. These streaming giants better figure out how to deliver a live sporting event without any hitches, because broadcast television understood this for decades, and they know, Donnie, hey, there is nothing more important.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, Rohit Panay is back with us. He's sticking around to preview some more NBA games coming up in the playoffs in 2026. But Rohit, before we do that, let's go back real quick. Your best plays for the NBA's play-in games as we wrap this up on Friday.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to lay the points with the Hornets here. I just love how they've played over the last couple of months. Have arguably been one of the top teams in the league, and now they're playing a Magic team that's just been on a downward spiral for a little while now. This is a Hornets offense that, their offensive output is extremely difficult to match up with when they're even close to their average three-point efficiency and volume, and the Magic just don't have the firepower to keep up. So, yeah, I'm laying the points there. When I'm looking at the Suns-Warriors game, it's a little bit different because, like you said, close spread. You can see this going either way. So I'm looking at some player props instead. My favorite one is Devin Booker, over 27.5 points. Like I said, this Warriors defense has been pretty terrible over the last couple of months. One of the worst in the league among all competitive teams, all teams looking to get into the playoffs. Booker, of course, go-to scorer for the Suns, really high volume. So he's always going to take those shots, whether or not they're going down. He's coming off a 22-point performance against Portland. But before that, he had scored at least 30 in 5 of his last 6.
All right, so Rohit, let's get to one series coming up in the West, and then let's do another one in the East before we get you out of here. Appreciate that. Nuggets, Timberwolves. Let's start off here. Should be a competitive, fun series, I would think. Looks like Denver is pretty heavily favored on to the second round. Is there anything in particular that has caught your eye with this series?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think for a lot of people, this looks like the most intriguing series. We've seen these guys clash in the playoffs before. Both of these teams are very similar to kind of the itinerations we've seen over the last few years. I think the big one, of course, is I do think the Timberwolves have a chance here. They've got a lot of guys who could shoot threes now. So if they get hot from deep, and, we've seen that the Nuggets have struggled defensively at times. So I certainly think the T-Wolves can pull off the upset here. But I'm leaning a little bit towards the Nuggets. So I'm looking at more of the series spread numbers. I think you can get the Timberwolves at plus 1.5. So even if they keep this series, they go to a game 7, that's plus 125, plus 2.5. So even if they go to, game 6, that's minus 170. So I think those have a little bit of value there if you're looking to take this, because I do think this will be a competitive series between two teams that have a lot of familiarity with each other.
All right, so let's go to the other series that I see the odds closing in on almost even here, interestingly enough, with the Knicks and Hawks. Look, the Knicks have to be favored, but I thought they'd be a much bigger favorite opening. Yes, minus 235. This is the series correct? I got that right? Okay.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I
Hawks
think-
are plus 194, but to me, I thought this would be larger, very similar to the Nuggets Timberwolves. I noticed earlier in the week it was closer to 300. What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually the closest series of the first round, and it makes a lot of sense because the Hawks are that kind of up and coming young team. We see them play, really well. Getting rid of Trae Young, getting rid of Porzingis. This team has actually played like a team for once. So I think there's a lot of excitement around them. But at the same time, I'm on the Knicks side in this. I think they're a little bit more experienced, especially comes to the playoffs. They have home court advantage, of course, and I do think that they are, ready to go at least, make a deep run, if not actually challenge for the title. But I think we get a little bit of value on the Knicks because people seem to be coming in pretty hard on this young Hawks team. So some value on the Knicks here to take them either in the series or take them on some shorter spreads. I think we're looking at a pretty short spread for game one. So that's something that I'm definitely going to look to play.
Let's take a look in the East real quick. We've got the Celtics as favorites, but it's basically the big four, I think, in the East. Boston, Cleveland, Detroit, New York. Hard to make a case for anyone else.
Yeah, I think so. But like I said, Detroit is one team that I'd be wary of backing because playoff experience matters so much in the NBA. Teams are never ready to run after, missing the playoffs for a bunch of years. Usually takes some time to get acclimated. So I'm not sure how they're going to play in, some of these 7-game series against some of these more experienced teams like the Clevelands, the Bostons, etc.
And my last question for you, Rohit, is that the news that the NBA just released that they made an exemption for Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham to potentially win the MVP and All NBA. What am I missing here? I thought that the votes had to be in for the MVP, or do they not happen until Friday night or Saturday or something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure there. From what I can gather, I think that, they didn't actually take them off the ballot is what I'm going to assume, and that they would have just kind of eliminated them from the ballot afterwards. Because, yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either. And both of these guys are definitely going to get MVP votes, certainly going to get all NBA votes. But unfortunately, Anthony Edwards, I think, missed the cutoff by 4 games. He is not getting an exemption.
All right, great stuff. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig. Best of luck.
NFL Draft Talk coming up next. Jacob Kamaker from USA Today. Don't go away.
I gotta tell you, Kansas basketball the last 3 months, if I was the number 1 player in the country, I'd cross them off my list. Bill Self did not do Darren Peterson any favors. And now Badunga's gonna stay in college, but leave Lawrence? I'm red flags, in my opinion, Gabe, around the Jayhawks.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
For those people who use YouTube, there's a new feature that is powered by AI. And what is this exactly, Simon?
So let's say you're watching Yankees highlights, and you can say, YouTube, when is the next game at Yankee Stadium? You see that information on the screen. How much is the cost? What seats are available? You see that information on the screen. All right, call the Yankee Stadium box office. I want to make a reservation for 2 tickets.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
All these idiots out there sounding off on Tiger right now. See, it's so easy to go after a guy that's hurt. He's hurt. Whether you call it whatever you want. He's got a little bit of an issue and he's going to fix. Okay? They're attacking. Attack. Why don't you all shut up and let him go do his thing? He had to leave the country to do it because of privacy? That's nauseating to me.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
We may be talking about this as one of the best divisions in baseball. It's not generally something we do, but if the Pirates just hold court and the Reds just hold court and the Cubs are in this thing, the Brewers are going to be there in the end too. I mean, that's 4 of the 5 teams. I do think the Cardinals are going to push back at some point. They'll fall back a little bit, but I got 4 teams with a possibility of making the postseason here, Donnie.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, it's Jacob Kamaker season, which means it's NFL draft season here on Sports Grid. And by the way, we'll have a special Thursday night next week to get you caught up on everything happening in the NFL draft as Jacob joins us now here to discuss it. And certainly, Jacob, I think the first pick in the draft is the only foregone conclusion in this draft in the National Football League. This is a really strange draft where I'm not sure talent-wise what it will provide us, but I think that they try to make it interesting every year, Jacob, like, oh, we're going to have a million trades, and then usually nothing happens. I think this may be that year because there's so much silence leading up to this thing.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Craig. I think this is going to be an unpredictable draft. I think we're going to see a lot of trades. And the reason for that is, this draft has some talent, but a lot of the concentration of the blue chip higher end guys is at positions that aren't traditionally, the positions that you look for in terms of positional value atop the draft. We got a couple of really great off-ball linebackers. We've got a great running back. We've got a great safety, but those guys don't often go in the top 10. But this year, they're probably, if not all, most of them going to go in the top 10. So I think you're going to see a lot of teams struggle to kind of evaluate and say, hey, this is where I have the guy on the board, but is it worth it taking a running back this early? Is it worth it taking a safety this early? So I think some teams that are more comfortable with that could end up trading up for those types of talent. So I think it's going to be very interesting. The draft does start at 2. We're pretty sure Fernando Mendoza is going to be the number 1 overall pick, but anything can happen after that.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, so let's talk Cardinals and Browns, because those are the two teams that when you read a lot of the publications, seemingly everyone feels that one of those two teams ends up trading out of that pick. I don't know if it's some other team jumping up to get Love or someone else. No one's really clear on that. But because these two teams are sort of far away from being very good, it feels like they need to move down to get extra picks. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I think when you're evaluating those top 10 selections, those are the two teams that are most likely to move down. And it has more to do with how their needs align with what's on the board. Both of those teams really have a need for an offensive tackle. The Cardinals need a right tackle badly, and the Browns need a left tackle badly. But this year's tackle class, while it's deep, it doesn't have that kind of Penei Sewell type at the top of the class where you're saying, oh, this guy's going to be a stud at either left or right tackle for 10 plus years. There's just not a prospect like that. It's more of a pick your flavor. So I think teams like the Cardinals and Browns might look and say like, hey, we like Francis Mauigoa. Hey, we like Caden Proctor. But do we really want to spend a number 3 or number 6 overall pick on them when we might be able to get them in the teens or maybe even like around 12? I think that's what they're going to be evaluating. And I do think there will be opportunities for them to move down. And I keep looking at that 12th pick where the Dallas Cowboys are stationed as a potential hot spot for Dallas to move up because, man, Craig, they want a handful of defenders. There's like about 6 top tier defenders, I think. And if none of them make it to that pick at 12, the Cowboys are going to be in an awkward spot. So I think this might be the perfect draft for Jerry Jones and them to get aggressive and try to move up.
I think they're going to do it. I do. I think you're right. I think this is that draft. I mean, every year can't go by with them not doing it. I think this is the one. Okay, so as we look at the odds for the 3rd overall pick, take a look at the odds last year versus this year. I mean, there's no minus money, and everyone's kind of bunched up together, which means anything can happen. Reese is plus 185. Bailey is plus 210. You have like 4 or 5 players that are even in the 15-1 range. I mean, Jacob, this is the 3rd overall pick. You would think that we would have more of a bead on who's going to go right now. I think it could be anybody.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Craig. And I think you look at this and you say to yourself, why there isn't minus money. If we knew what the Jets were going to do at number 2, whether they're going to pick David Bailey or Arvell Reese, that sort of seems to be the inflection point of this draft. If we knew what they were going to do with certainty, I think the other one of these two edge rushers between Reese and Bailey would be the heavy favorite to go here. Right. But like I mentioned, the Cardinals, if they stick and pick, they have a massive need at right tackle. So they could just say, hey, maybe Arvell Reese or David Bailey would be a big upgrade to our edge rush, but we just need to be sure that we protect our quarterback, whoever that will be, whether that's this season or beyond, if they're looking at 2027 draft prospects. So I think those first 3 guys are probably the most likely options for the pick. But then you also get into the territory of, hey, they could consider Jeremiah Love. And I know I've heard rumors about them maybe being interested in him. I think they probably won't do it because I don't think they're close to a running back away from being a contender, especially not in the NFC West. But it really is wide open. If I had to guess right now, with it looking like the Jets are going to go David Bailey, if the Cardinals stick and pick, I would say Arvell Reese should probably be the option there. But like you said, it's really wide open. That's more of a guess than it is a gut feeling of certainty at this point.
It is. We have such little steam on any of these players a week away from the draft. I've never seen anything like this before, where really nobody has any idea. Same could be said for the Browns, and I think Cardell Tate is favored because the Browns need a receiver. But Jacob, I'm telling you now, don't discount anyone that we're seeing here on the odds here. I just think, look, the sports books, I don't want to say that they're in trouble here, Jacob. They're going to make money one way or the other, but I just think that they're placing these odds based on need as opposed to what these teams are actually going to do. Someone's going to make big money on one of these picks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking with that number 6 overall pick. There's been a lot of buzz about Caden Proctor to the Browns, and it makes a ton of sense in terms of fit and talent. Like, Caden Proctor is 6'7", 352 pounds, and has unique movement skills. He profiles as a potential elite right tackle at the next, or I'm sorry, elite left tackle at the next level, which is what the Browns need. Granted, he needs to develop, be more consistent, but in a draft where there isn't a clear-cut top tackle, they could just say, hey, Proctor's top's on our board. If we can't move down, we might take him here. But at the same time, I do think that if they're going to get Proctor, it would be better for them to trade down because he probably will be there at, say, 12 if the Cowboys want to come up and get whoever of the defensive players is left. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, though, that Proctor could end up being a sneaky option here. But again, I look at the favorite and I say, yeah, Carnell Tate makes sense there. But are they confident that they're going to get an offensive tackle with their first pick or their second pick of the first round? Are they more confident in the receiver depth early in the draft or late in the draft? This is all going to influence what the Browns do. And I kind of think they would prefer to just get that left tackle need out of the way, whether it's at 6 or via a trade down with their first pick.
And could be some big money on Proctor if he goes where Jacob is maybe alluding to. Still a long way to go between now and next Thursday, maybe a trade or two, but you can make some big dough on 14-1 if that ends up happening and that goes in the way of that direction. All right, let's wrap it up with the Kansas City Chiefs. They're looking at a lot of different positions in this draft. We know that they took care of running back by getting Kenneth Walker, but potentially looking at maybe a lineman, maybe even someone on the defensive side of the ball. The Chiefs, for the first time in a while, enter a draft with multiple needs.
Yeah, I think, Craig, there's two ways to look at this. You could look at it and say, what does Andy Reid always do in the NFL draft? And if you take that approach and just say he's going to do what he always does, he's going to take someone in the trenches. And they have a big need at right tackle. And I think Francis Maui-Noah from Miami, if he's on the board at number 9, I would almost be shocked if they don't take him. But at the same time, they could go an offensive weapon just to provide more support to Patrick Mahomes. You look at Jordan Tyson, you look at Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, freak athlete. Travis Kelce doesn't have a whole lot of time remaining in the league. I think the Chiefs could be an interesting landing spot for him. Probably a little rich, but I would just keep an eye on him in that range. I think that 9 to 15 range for him, that's probably where he ends up going on draft day because he's a very, very talented player.
An unusual draft without having several quarterbacks being pushed up into the first round. First time we haven't seen that in a while, Jacob. So the only question with the quarterbacks as we enter draft season a week away, are there going to be 2 quarterbacks taken in the first round? Will Ty Simpson be that second one?
I think he will be, Craig. I think he gets the Jackson Dart treatment. Like, I think unless the Jets or Steelers fall in love with him at 16 or 21, he's going to fall to the end of the first round. But I think a team like the Cardinals or even the Jets could move up, just say, hey, we're going to sacrifice some of our draft capital just to lock this guy in, get his 5th-year option and say, if this guy works out, he has all the tools needed to be a solid starter. And if it doesn't, we can always just take another quarterback next year. So I do think he makes it in, but it's going to be the Jackson Dart treatment. It's not going to be an obvious landing spot necessarily.
Yeah, really good call by you, too. That 5th-year option is huge. Just got to get the guy in the first round. All right, Jacob, great stuff as always. We'll check back in before the draft next Thursday. Thanks for coming on.
Sounds good, Craig. Take care and talk to you soon.
All right, when we come back next, time to get into the Stanley Cup playoff picture with George Kurtz. Don't go away.
I gotta tell you, Kansas basketball the last 3 months, if I was the number 1 player in the country, I'd cross them off my list. Bill Self did not do Darren Peterson any favors. And now Badunga's going to stay in college but leave Lawrence? I'm red flags, in my opinion, Gabe, around the Jayhawks.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
For those people who use YouTube, there's a new feature that is powered by AI. And what is this exactly, Simon?
So let's say you're watching Yankees highlights, and you can say, YouTube, when is the next game at Yankee Stadium? You see that information on the screen. How much is the cost? What seats are available? You see that information on the screen. All right, call the Yankee Stadium box office. I want to make a reservation for 2 tickets.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
All these idiots out there sounding off on Tiger right now. See, it's so easy to go after a guy that's hurt. He's hurt. Whether you call it whatever you want. He's got a little bit of an issue and he's going to fix. Okay? They're attacking. Attack. Why don't you all shut up and let him go do his thing? He had to leave the country to do it because of privacy? That's nauseating to me.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
We may be talking about this as one of the best divisions in baseball. It's not generally something we do, but if the Pirates just hold court and the Reds just hold court and the Cubs are in this thing, I mean, the Brewers are going to be there in the end too. I mean, that's 4 of the 5 teams. I do think the Cardinals are going to push back at some point. They'll fall back a little bit, but I got 4 teams with a possibility of making the postseason here, Donnie.
Pro Baseball Today. Only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. The second season of the National Hockey League is almost underway. We've got the playoffs, no play-in games, just straight hockey. I know George Kurtz can appreciate that. George, great to have you back here on NewsWire, chopping up some hockey. I think we did get a big piece of news, by the way, last night that I do want to mention before we get to the games. There was a lot of speculation. I don't know. You'll tell me if this is accurate or not, but there was a lot of speculation that Alex Ovechkin could retire after last night's game, but he said that he's coming back, I think, for another season, which is surprising because all the trends were toward him retiring at the end of the year.
Well, he said he's pretty sure he'll play again. Now, how are we going to read this? He was always going to play again. Some people theorize, where is he going to play? Would he go play in the KHL with his, friends, family? But he says he'll play again. I think he may have given a big hint over the weekend on Saturday when they played the Pittsburgh Penguins. After the game, Sidney Crosby wanted to, have a celebration line, and Alex, he waved them off. No. So that may have been the hint that either he was coming back and don't give me the line, or listen, I don't like that sort of thing. It makes me uneasy. So hopefully he is coming back. I don't think it's 100% yet, Craig, but hopefully Alex Ovechkin will be back for I think going to be his 21st season next year.
So now let's get to the playoffs here. The Vegas Golden Knights, they win the division. They beat the Kraken 4-1 and went 7-0-1 to close out the season. I mean, this is probably the best expansion team in the history of sports when you really think about where they've come in the last decade. But here they are again, and I would ask you, with them playing the Mammoth, who I don't know a ton about in the first round here, what kind of odds do you give them to go deep into the playoffs this year?
Well, it depends. What do we believe here? All right, they did go 7-0-1, which you said, which coincides with the hiring of John Tortorella, right? They fired their head coach, went with Tortorella, who seems to have turned things around, but let's face it, the schedule was pretty kind. I don't know if the GM did it on purpose, but man, he did it at the right time where they were playing an easier schedule here. Before that, they weren't very good this season at all. What do we believe about Carter Hart, the goaltender there? This is a guy who's had, troubles both on and off the ice throughout his career here. You need goaltending in the playoffs there. Utah has what's likely the better goaltender in Vejmelka there. They're the former Arizona Coyotes, so we were making fun of this team for a couple of years, right? And all of a sudden they're playing Vegas here. I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's going to be a very good series. Vegas has all the experience. Utah has very little here. I think Vegas is going to win this series in about 6 or 7 games. Do I think they're going far? Well, they might, Craig, because the NHL's playoff system is insane. You stay within your division. Remember, Vegas is not going to have to worry about playing Dallas, Minnesota, or Colorado until the conference finals. So they'll either play Edmonton if they move on here, or whoever beats Edmonton. And I don't know if the Kings are going to beat Edmonton or Anaheim for that matter. So yeah, to answer your question, Vegas has a chance to go far. They do, but only because of Gary Bettman's playoff system, not because they're the team to beat in the NHL this year.
Am I crazy in thinking that Edmonton has to just feel a little bit better about the Panthers being knocked out? At least they finally have their path to win it all. I know they're 6-1 here, and they didn't have the season they did a year ago, but you talked me out of taking the Oilers.
Once again, they're in that same situation as Vegas because they play in the Pacific Division. They have the easier road to at least get to the conference finals here. And there's a chance, we won't know until after tonight's games, that they're going to play their Patties in the first round, the Los Angeles Kings. All right, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they'd have to lose to Vancouver, which is highly unlikely. But there is a chance they could play the Los Angeles Kings. Wouldn't that be funny? They always beat them. Edmonton, we know they can score goals here. All right, so I know it's been an issue for them. We don't know about Leon Draisaitl yet. He's been out for about a month now. He is practicing, so my best guess is he is going to play game one. We don't know when that'll be either. It'll be sometime over the weekend. So, yeah, I like Everton to at least win round one. And if they end up playing Vegas in round two, it's going to be, a really good series, something I'd be looking forward to. But they seem to be that team that turns it on when it matters most. Vegas or Edmonton, it would probably be one hell of a round two series there for the right to play. Maybe the Colorado Avalanche, the Stars, or the Wild here. Yeah, I think they're going to make noise again. I certainly don't think they're going out in round one no matter who they play.
So over in the East, Tampa Bay was fantastic, and they're the favorites to win the conference. But certainly Carolina had a really good year. I don't want to discount Buffalo too. They're going to pack the house there. I know it's a really, really big upcoming series for them as well. Is it one of the favorites here, George? Do you think that anybody on the back end has a shot here? Because the odds makers are telling us probably one of those top two teams, Tampa Bay or Carolina, playing for the Cup.
Yeah, I think it's because they have the experience, right? Tampa Bay, Vasilevsky, Kucherov, who's had a magnificent season here, Gensel, Hagel. They have all that experience. They've been there, done that. So I think that's why they get all that credit there. But it's also because you look at the other contenders here. You mentioned Buffalo. Okay, who's studying goal? Is it Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen or Alex Lyon? Montreal, really good young team here. They're going to go with the rookie there, right? Dobes. Carolina's got the same problem, by the way. They got a rookie in Bussi. Or is it going to be the old veteran Frederick Anderson, who's generally failed during the playoffs in net there. So it's sort of a weird little thing in the playoffs this year where so many teams don't have that number one goaltender, outside of Vasilevsky. Boston with Swayman, but no one really expects them to do that much damage. The question for the Lightning is going to be, will Victor Hedman be back? He's been out due to personal reasons that we don't know exactly why for, once again, about a month. Is he returning for game one here? It is a huge loss if he's not there. I do like Tampa Bay to be that team to beat there. I think it's going to be Tampa Bay and Colorado in the finals.
All right, let's pivot over to baseball while we have George here for a minute or two with some afternoon baseball wrapping up. We go to, of course, some evening games, 6:10 Eastern. We've got the Orioles taking on the Cleveland Guardians in a really tough one to call. You see Cleveland minus 126. The total is 8. Cleveland, have they done it again, George? This Parker Messick, my gosh, like out of nowhere, they found another pitcher. I think Shane Baz maybe long-term the better pitcher, but any opinion on today's game?
Cleveland just lost 2 out of 3 to St. Louis Cardinals, right? Baltimore has been started off slow, then got hot, now struggling a little bit again. Kind of like what Baltimore's done. Cleveland's always there at the end here. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. All right, so that's where I'm going with this one here. I do worry about Baltimore breaking out with their offense here, but Cleveland's generally not scoring runs there for the Guards. So give me the under in this contest.
And finally, the series that we're all waiting for, Colorado and Houston, to wrap up. Man, how is Houston minus 170 today with Weiss on the mound today? I'm not sure about this one. Total of 8.5. Both teams have kind of been a little bit of a mess. Feels like more of a pick'em game, though, to me, Jordan.
I probably like the Astros to win. They are the better team, but they've got a lot of injuries, but are a little bit of a mess here. Give me the Astros team total over.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it.
Hey.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. 1 week from tonight, we've got you covered for the NFL draft, and we think we know who the number one pick is going to be. Probably Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. The Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock. But before Mendoza is picked Thursday, he's actually throwing out the first pitch at Lone Depot Park on Tuesday when the Marlins play the Cardinals. He made that announcement yesterday.
What's up, Marlins fans? This is Fernando Mendoza. I'm excited to throw out the first pitch April 21st. See you guys there.
Now, of course, everyone has to get mad about something. Why would anybody in South Florida be upset with a kid who grew up in South Florida throwing out the first pitch at the Marlins game? Why? Because Indiana beat the Hurricanes in the college football playoff? I mean, everyone just has to be mad about stuff. I think this is a very cool and great idea. But yeah, people just have to argue about things. I guess that's what's going on online these days. Okay. Anyway, let's wrap up the show. We'll get to what's at stake here for the Charlotte Hornets. The Rays win on April the 15th for the first time in a long time. That and a whole lot more as we wrap up this Thursday edition of NewsWire with some last licks. All right, so if the Charlotte Hornets win and get in the playoffs, it would mark the first time that all three major sports teams in North Carolina make the playoffs in the same season. The Carolina Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes, and could we get the Charlotte Hornets in? Now, let's not forget that Charlotte has a long history of playing in the NBA playoffs, back in the day especially, but it would be a really special event if the Hornets could end up winning and getting to at least the NBA playoff round where they'd have an opportunity to maybe even win some more playoff games. Now, NBA making the announcement official last night, LaMelo Ball, who was involved with a little skirmish with Bam Adebayo, he was fined, but he will end up playing in the Charlotte Hornets game and their play-in tournament game, and then we'll see if they move on to the next round and get this win. Okay, so the first time, I mean, honestly, to think that this is even possible, I had no idea. For the first time in 15 years on Jackie Robinson Day, the Tampa Bay Rays got their win on April the 15th. So that's 15 different seasons of losing by coincidence on that day. They lost in 2012 and 2013. They didn't play in 2014. From 2015 to 2018, they lost every single year. They didn't play in 19 or 20. We know why in 20. And then from 21 to 25, they lost again. What is it about this day that can't get them a victory? I'm not sure, but they did end up getting their win yesterday. And so good news for the Rays. They can celebrate, of course, on Jackie Robinson Day. Look, I mean, these things are just more or less, I think, coincidence more than anything else. I don't look too far into these things, but generally speaking, this time of the year, the Rays and some of the teams in the domes, they go on the road. So maybe that is why this is, because usually the Rays and the Marlins and these teams with the domes open up at home the first week or so, playing a lot of games, and then they go on the road when things get warmer, which is about to where it is right now. Well, talking about getting warmer, this one was hot last night. Boy, I guess Chris Paul did not like his exit from the Los Angeles Clippers. We knew that was the case, but we didn't think it would get this bad. Oh, no. He posted that meme last night on Instagram when the Clippers lost, of that guy who we've seen many times, for those of you who use social media, Twitter, Instagram, and everything else, of the funeral there. And I guess CP3 sort of celebrating the Clippers losing and him being unceremoniously cut by the Clippers earlier in the season. Chris Paul, a future Hall of Famer. If indeed his career is over, you never know these days. Guys come back, even though they say they're retired. But I think it is over. Chris Paul taking a shot at the Clippers. A supremely disappointing season for the Clippers, who are not the favorites to win the championship or even to win the West. But I don't think many people thought they would miss the playoffs entirely, which is what happened after losing to the Golden State Warriors last night. That'll do it for our show today. Thanks to our guest, Jacob Kamaker from USA Today. Thanks to Rohit Panaya for coming on and talking some hoops with us, and also George Kurtz on the Stanley Cup Playoffs. We'll talk more hockey, of course, coming up on the show next week as well. Hope you enjoyed our program today. We'll be back to wrap up this week's edition of NewsWire tomorrow. That's 12 o'clock Eastern as we get you ready for the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. So make sure you tune in. And for those of you who want to stream our shows, maybe when you're on the road, you can download us It's the SportsGrid app, where you stream us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just by taking out your phone, scanning that QR code. And by the way, the SportsGrid app is absolutely free, as well as our programming here. Thanks again to Tommy for directing and Frank on the graphics. And of course, thanks to Chris for producing the show. I'm Craig Mish. Have a great Thursday, everyone. We'll see you back here Friday for our next edition of News.